Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mid-Season Fantasy Baseball Award Show. I will be your host, James Shiano, as I give out the first half awards for MVP, LVP, Cy Young, Cy Na, the Comeback Player of the Year, the Rookie of the Year, the season's best waiver wire pickup so far. 8 total awards, and it's going to be a jam-packed video. I've been teasing this one for a couple of weeks now, and I thought this was the perfect time to put it out. Just about a week past the midway point of the season, every team has played about 90 or so games so far, and with the All-Star break coming up in just a few days. I also did tell you guys, as I was teasing this video, that I would dress to the nines in a suit and tie. Then I went in my closet, I realized I don't have a suit and tie, so here you go. You still got a collar nonetheless. Thank you. But without further ado, let's start the show. Now, the first award of the night is going to be for the LVP, or the least valuable player, aka just the biggest bust of the season so far. And there are so many great options for this award so far this season, because there are a lot of players who've had really bad first half of the season. But the first nominee for this award is Michael Harris of the Braves. Michael Harris so far has been one of the worst offensive players in all of baseball this season. By some metrics, like his 552 OPS and just shockingly low 235 on base percentage, he actually is the worst player in baseball, with the lowest qualified of each of those stats by about 20 points lower than the next closest guy. Also, so shocking about Michael Harris, he has not drawn a walk since May 18th. You heard that right. We are after the 4th of July. We're approaching the All-Star break. Michael Harris of the Braves has not drawn a walk since May 18th. Nearly 200 plate appearances. That's about a third of an entire season. Michael Harris has not taken a free base. He's swinging at absolutely everything. Pitchers know they don't have to throw him any strikes to get him out, and he's completely lost. There's no way for him seemingly right now to dig his way out of this hole. Also important to remember that while he's been a huge bust this season, Michael Harris is still just 24 years old. That's the same age as rookie teammate Drake Baldwin, Chandler Simpson on the Rays, Kyle Manzardo, Dalton Rushing. 24-year-old, we're not writing off Michael Harris, but so far through the first half of the season, he is absolutely nominated as the least valuable player. Same with his teammate Ozzie Albies, whose stats are not as bad as Harris's, but also just so disappointing nonetheless, considering his entire body of work. He only has 6 home runs and 7 stolen bases just past the halfway point, with a 600 OPS and a 290 on base percentage. Just really so unbelievably bad for Albies. It's gotten so bad for Albies that while he's always been renowned as having the most team-friendly contract in baseball, they're starting to get some murmurs that the Braves might actually turn down the team option for Ozzie Albies for about $10 million next season and just let him become a free agent. Something that we thought would have been unthinkable even just 2 years, a year and a half ago. And the last player nominated for the least valuable player award is Anthony Santander in the Blue Jays. Signed as a big free agent coming off a 44-homer season, Santander, before getting injured, had just 6 home runs in 50 games with 179 batting average. Completely egregious for someone that was brought in to be a premier power hitter for their new team. And it's kind of funny enough, Santander was injured about a month ago. Since that happened, the Blue Jays have played great baseball, so it is kind of funny how that works. And now, without further ado, the award for least valuable player in the first half of the season goes to Ozzie Albies of the Atlanta Braves. Now, Albies gets the nod over this award over his teammate Michael Harris just because of how bad the second base position is in general and how much we always expect a guy like Ozzie Albies, who is a perennial like 2020, 25-25 guy, to steady that position. We spend high draft picks on Ozzie Albies every single season, and this year it's all completely fell apart and he has become a drop in basically every single league somehow. Now, the next award will be for comeback player, and the comeback player can be coming back from injuries or kind of just from sucking, as some of these guys did. But the first nominee is Byron Buxton of the Twins. Buxton has been a revelation this season. Electric in center field, 20 home runs, 15 stolen bases, and 900 OPS so far, just past the halfway point of the season. Right now, he's basically been one of the 20 or so most valuable players in all of fantasy baseball. And it's funny because this is right when everyone began to just totally write him off. He wasn't drafted in many leagues. He was left on the waiver wire through April in a lot of places as well. That really was always just because of his health. The 102 games that Byron Buxton sneakily played last season were the second most of his entire career, and the most since 2017. But when he'd played in small samples in each of the last 4 seasons, he was really good in 3 of them. So you always knew that Byron Buxton, if he could just stay on the field, would be a highly productive player. Now he's staying on the field, and he is a highly productive player. Next up is one of the most shocking ones we've had this season. It's George Springer of the Toronto Blue Jays. It's a similar vibe to Buxton, where a lot of us kind of wrote off George Springer, but it was mostly because of his aging and his poor play rather than anything health-related. Despite always hanging around 20 homers and 20 stolen bases in the last 2 seasons, Springer was objectively mid elsewhere. His parametrics were declining, his on-base percentage was declining. It never looked like he would get back to the spot of being the elite player we'd come to expect for him over most of his career, especially when there was a big decline in Springer from 2023 to 2024. His OPS went from 730 to 670. He was turning 35. It just seemed like a really expected age-related drop-off. So far this season now, he has nearly 900 OPS, 16 homers, 10 stolen bases, pushed back atop not to the top, not leadoff, but within the first chunk of the Blue Jays batting order. And everything he's doing under the hood tells us that this is still an elite hitter. It's just amazing that he's gotten himself back to this point. And now the last nominee for this award, Jacob deGrom of the Texas Rangers. It's just amazing watching Jacob deGrom back to doing Jacob deGrom things. It's an ERA in the low 2s. It's a whip under 1. It's lots of strikeouts. It's very few walks. It's managing and maintaining high 90s velocity while not seemingly overexerting himself and getting into the hundreds. It's still having pinpoint command of his slider. It's bringing back his changeup in a meaningful way to be the wrinkle his repertoire needs against left-handed batters when he's not blazing 102-mile-an-hour fastballs by everybody. It's also amazing the consistent length that deGrom gives game in and game out. Before Monday, he at least pitched into the 6th inning in 9 consecutive starts and has 10 quality starts on the season. That is such a far cry from the guy we expected deGrom to be coming off all of these arm injuries. All right, now without further ado, the winner for the comeback player of the season so far is Jacob deGrom, of course, on the Texas Rangers, just because of the bump that he's given all of us who took that leap of faith and drafted him, where now he is one of the 5 best pitchers in baseball again, clearly, especially in fantasy baseball. And where he was being drafted behind that, like, you knew the risk reward was amazing, because the risk was Jacob deGrom just doesn't pitch, because you know if he's on the mound, he's going to be great. But now this reward is that he looks like an absolute bona fide ace again. And if you have him on your team, if it's a head-to-head team, and you can keep him healthy, you're barreling towards a championship, and it's a rotisserie team, you're banked all these amazing innings, these amazing ratios so far from Jacob deGrom, as somehow, again, after all the injuries, in his late 30s, one of the most consistently dominant pitchers in all of baseball. Next up, I think we have the most fun award we're going to give out tonight. It's the Waiver Claim of the Year. I invented this one, very fancy baseball specific. You guys know how much I love talking about ads and drops on this channel, so I think I had to give a bump for the Waiver Claim of the Year. And the nominees are, first, Andy Pages, center fielder on the Dodgers. Pages, in real-life baseball, has snuck himself into the top 10 in accumulated FWAR of all players in the National League so far this season. In terms of value given to a baseball team, he's one of the 10 best in the National League, which is crazy to think about. A big reason for that is very, very, very special defense in center field, amazing range, an amazing arm, takes great routes to the ball, very, very good athlete. Like, he is just a special defender. But that was something we always knew Pages had. Right now, he's doing it more so with his bat, and that's the important thing for fantasy baseball, of course. With 7 home runs, 17 stolen bases, and a .290 batting average, he is a top 20 player in 5x5 rotisserie leagues, where you have categories for batting average, runs, RBIs, stolen bases, and homers. And then in points leagues, with how much contact he's making, how much power he's getting to, that high batting average with power and speed, like, he's been a complete revelation this season. Someone that was not drafted in most leagues, basically any league unless you guys are playing in 15-team leagues, able to be scooped up anytime in April, early May off the waiver wire, and now is an absolute stalwart in your lineup week in and week out. Same for the next player nominated here, Jonathan Aranda of the Tampa Bay Rays. Aranda always had really fun batted ball data and always put up really good stats in the upper minors, but he was never able to get that shot. The Rays never gave him the opportunity to be the full-time starting guy. Now he's finally gotten that, and he's hit so well this season with a .320 batting average, .398 on-base percentage, and .481 slugging percentage. All 3 of those marks are near the top of the American League, and based on everything he's done at the plate with one of the highest hard hit rates, a very high barrel rate, and solid swing decisions, there's nothing in his profile that makes us think that's not going to continue. Also, a big bonus for Aranda, a fear. Even as he was crushing through the first chunk of the season, and we all picked him up off waivers, we're like, ooh, I don't know if we can start him in every league. He's not really platooning anymore. As a left-handed batter, he's a much better hitter against right-handed pitchers than left-handed pitchers, but now he's been hitting better against the lefties, and most importantly, the Rays are trusting to keep him in the lineup against those lefties. What was the platoon 4 or 5 day a week guy is now the 6-7 day a week guy that we want our starting first baseman to be, and we have no qualms about Aranda being that going forward. Now, the next nominee here is Chris Bubic, starting pitcher on the Royals. If you guys have been watching this channel all season, you know how much I like Bubic. He was able to move from the bullpen last season back to the rotation this season and maintain his great fastball shape and some increased velocity to bring the rest of his repertoire off that with the slider, the sweeper, and the changeup. I knew right there we had a solid pitcher. I was advocating picking him up in early April. He's delivered on my promise. He looks like a clear top 30 pitcher for the rest of the season. And now the last guy in this list, a 4 nominee, it's going to be the only one like that tonight, is Addison Barger in Toronto Blue Jays. Another guy I vouch for hard this season, because when he came up to the Blue Jays, he had a great shot to play every single day. He had incredible batted ball data, nutty bat speed, and made perfect swing decisions. All of those things have coalesced so far in the first half for Barger, and he has 12 home runs and an .850 OPS in just over 225 plate appearances. That would put him on pace to be about a 30-homer guy over a full season, and he's chipped in a handful of stolen bases as well, while playing really, really good defense for the Blue Jays at third base. In terms of real-life baseball, Barger has absolutely turned the Blue Jays season around with the spark he's given them. But this award for Waiver Claim of the Year so far in fantasy baseball has to go to the first guy I mentioned, Andy Pages, because we're giving this award for what players have done so far this season. If I'm giving this award out at the end of the year, I think Barger or Bubic might push their way into winning it. But what Pages has done with nearly .300 batting average, 17 home runs and 7 stolen bases. That is such a boost for a guy that wasn't going to be on your team before the season. And playing every single day in a really, really, really talented Dodgers lineup that's still second in the league behind the Cubs in runs per game, you're accumulating so many counting stats that he just is the most valuable guy so far from this list. But now moving on, we have the aptly named Cy Na Award. These are the worst pitchers in baseball. These are the guys you can't believe you draft. These are the guys you regret drafting. I wanted to think of a better name for the Cy Na. I couldn't think of a guy who was like so tied in with their identity of being a pitcher that just would get blown up. So if you guys have any ideas for this, or maybe for the postseason award show, drop them down in the comments who we should be naming this Cy Na Award after, because I hate that name, but it just makes the most sense to me. But the nominees here are Aaron Nola, who's had just a catastrophic season with an ERA over 6. His velocity was down. He didn't have the same command of his knuckle curve. Everything seemed wrong. Some terrible blowups mixed in there that definitely cost you guys and me some weeks in our matchups. And then he went in the IL with what felt like a phantom ankle sprain. But then while he was on the IL, he had a stress reaction in his ribs that turned into a real IL strain. He's throwing bullpens now. He should be back a few weeks after the All-Star break. And I'm really just holding my breath and crossing my fingers we get the old Aaron Nola back after the break. But to this point in the season, he is definitely a nominee for this award. Same with Zach Gallen. I feel bad putting him on here because he is coming off 2 really good starts in a row against the Giants and Padres, division rivals, but the ERA is still over 5. He's still been one of the most disappointing pitchers in all of fantasy baseball. We've kind of learned a lot about the fragility of Gallen's repertoire, being a fly ball pitcher, getting some strikeouts, who really relies on sequencing because everything just comes off that fastball and then knuckle curveball, fastball, knuckle curveball, kind of aiming them in similar spots, low in the zone and to the arm side. But if he misses with any of them, or if hitters know which one's coming, or if he can't locate the fastball, or if they're not chasing the curveball, if any of those little things goes wrong, Gallen's not efficient, and that's what we're seeing so far from him this season. And the last nominee is Sandy Alcantara. Just terrible. ERA over 7 coming off Tommy John surgery. We were so excited about Sandy Alcantara as a collective fantasy baseball community when he was back to pumping 98, 99 miles per hour in the spring. We got word from the Marlins that there wasn't going to be really much of an innings restriction, innings limit. People that drafted early and were able to take Sandy Alcantara, like after pick 200, were pumped. You guys thought you got one over on the rest of your league, but you were wrong because he stinks. It looked like he was figuring it out for a little bit. Can't turn the corner, not striking anybody out, not getting ground balls like he used to, having no command of any of the breaking stuff. It just is so bad for Alcantara, and that's why he is the winner for the first half Cy Na Award, because it has been so bad, and we'd come to expect so much greatness from Sandy Alcantara because of the pitcher he's been his whole career. So seeing him struggle with an ERA over 7 this deep in the season is just kind of ridiculous. I'm sure most of you guys, me as well, have dropped Sandy Alcantara in most of the leagues we're playing in. There can't be many 10-team leagues out there where Sandy's still on the roster, and there's probably not many 12s either. I don't even know what's going to happen with him in the trade deadline, because I'm sure the Marlins are dying to dump him, but I don't know who's going to take him to expect that he will be able to pitch well through a postseason push. And now some quick honorable mentions for this award. Bailey Ober, horrible so far with the Twins, now on the injured list. Luis Severino, disaster contract out in Sacramento. Roki Sasaki, you guys remember him, my biggest bust of the season. Nailed that one, but he was unplayable, and now it looks like he's just going to be kind of soft out for the season. Not really any news, any mentions of him recently. Also, I wanted to quickly throw Emmanuel Clase onto this list for the Cy Na, because just in terms of fantasy baseball, in real life, of course, since that little blip in the radar for him over the first month, he's been, again, unhittable, a tremendous pitcher. But it's just a great reminder for us not to let one-year samples of relief pitchers, let them get pushed too far up our draft boards. I know my guy Ernie, in our home league, he took Emmanuel Clase like within the top 50 picks. Just never, ever, ever take a reliever that high in a fantasy baseball league, especially not a generic points league. Never, ever, ever do that. And then lastly, Tanner Bybee. Just can't turn the corner as well this season. Really struggling. Now we're moving on to the 3 biggest awards of the show. We have the Rookie of the Year, the Cy Young, and the MVP. Starting with the Rookie of the Year, we have some great nominees. First up, it's Jacob Wilson, shortstop on the Athletics, has come out of nowhere this season to be competing for the batting title, likely going to push Aaron Judge there in his pursuit of a Triple Crown, with 335 average so far for Wilson. But we did kind of know, based on what Wilson did in college and what Wilson was doing in the minor leagues last season with the Athletics, that if and when he got to the major leagues, he would run a high batting average, but the rest of the profile was where we questioned his fantasy value. But he has 9 home runs just past the halfway point in the season. People didn't even think he'd get to 5 this whole season. He's pulling some fly balls. He's hitting the ball with authority much more often than any of us thought. I can't believe that he's actually running with what's close to a 20 home run pace, because I was one of the people in that camp that didn't even really see Jacob Wilson getting to 10 home runs this season. And now he's at 9 and we're not at the All-Star break yet. Now the next nominee is Jacob Misiorowski. And I know I told you guys that I'm doing this award show for everything that's happened so far, and I'm sticking to that. because the 4 starts we've had for Mizorowski, even with one of them being terrible, are so good that I'm pretty ready to crown him as a top 25 pitcher for the rest of the season. And I think by the time we get to the end of the season, Mizorowski will have won this award handily. Even after he only made 2 starts in the major leagues, he had catapulted himself to the best odds for National League Rookie of the Year, which is crazy to think about, but that's the kind of stuff Mizorowski has. With the 100-mile-an-hour fastball, 95-mile-an-hour slider, curveball that he can show on occasion, taking the no-hitter into the 5th inning in his first career start, the perfect game into the 7th inning in his second career start, and then beating Paul Skeens in his 3rd career start, bang, 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 that's a guy who is an absolute bona fide stud. As we get through this season, I know the Brewers likely aren't going to push him. I don't think we see 100 pitches from Mizorowski, but just sticking in that 80 to 90 pitch range as that team is in pursuit of a playoff spot, I really think week in and week out, you're getting a stud pitcher in Mizorowski. And then the last nominee here is Cam Smith, outfielder on the Astros. What an amazing story Smith has been this season, beginning as the centerpiece in the trade, going from the Cubs to the Astros in exchange for Kyle Tucker, along with Isaac Paredes and Hayden Wesneski, and then just really struggling through the first 6-7 weeks of the season. On May 15th, Smith only had 3 home runs, a 30% strikeout rate, and a .214 batting average. This was while he was trying to learn that new position, right field, coming up as a third baseman before that, but the Astros in that same trade acquiring Paredes and signing Christian Walker, so they're like, here you go, kid, have fun in right field. And it was just, it was a lot of pressure on him, taking over that spot from Kyle Tucker, learning the new position. It really did feel like Smith was probably going to be sent down to the minor leagues. But now, since May 15th, he's been a completely different player. Only 4 home runs since then, so we are still waiting on that power surge from Smith. But over nearly 2 months of play, he has a .327 batting average, .850 OPS, 13 doubles, driving in runs, scoring runs, playing great defensive right field, which is amazing. Could never have imagined that this quickly. Moving up into the upper third of the Astros lineup, having that dual positional eligibility at outfield and third base, a great piece to have on any fantasy roster. And looks like someone who's just well on their way to being a stud for a long time. But I do have to give this award to Jacob Wilson, the first guy I mentioned, because of how out of nowhere he's come, how productive he has been over the first half of the season, again with that .330 batting average, scoring tons of runs, and even having 9 homers, but also just because of how valuable his skill set has actually been in fantasy baseball. If you guys are playing in ESPN points leagues, which I'm sure many of you are, Wilson has been one of the highest scoring shortstops in all of baseball, which is amazing considering how deep that position is. And he's been a top 30 scoring overall hitter, a big reason for that is that his skill set really lends itself to that scoring system where you lose points for strikeouts and you just get points for putting the ball in play incessantly. Wilson's a guy who does not strike out and puts the ball in play incessantly, so he gets pushed up a lot, again, specifically in ESPN points leagues. But he's just become such a stud, totally out of nowhere, looking like something close to a blue chipper for this Sacramento roster that has him, Brent Rooker, Lawrence Butler, Shane Langoliers, a good few exciting players on that Athletics roster if they can ever figure out the pitching staff. Now a handful of honorable mentions. Drake Baldwin's been a great catcher this year for the Braves, taking over at least halftime playing duty from Sean Murphy. Will Warren, I wanted to put him on here. You guys know how badly I wanted to put him on here, but just too many blow-ups, pushing that ERA still above 5 to actually really consider him for this award. Chad Patrick, running an ERA in the mid-3s, but actually recently demoted by the Brewers, but still what he's done to this point warrants consideration here. And Roman Anthony, very clearly turning the corner. By the end of the year, it's going to be him versus Mizorowski for the most productive rookie in all fantasy baseball. He actually had a chance to push Jacob Wilson for the award in real life because of how good he's looked over the last 2 weeks. Top of the league power, incredible plate discipline, incredible swing decisions, incredible bat speed, incredible athleticism. Roman Anthony does kind of look like the perfect player, but he has only played well for 2 weeks, so I couldn't really actually consider nominating him for this award. And now the second to last award of the show, it is the Cy Young for the first half fantasy baseball. And I'm going to do something a little bit different with this award. There's only going to be 2 actual nominees. That will be Max Fried and Hunter Brown. But that's because the third nominee, I'm going to give an honorary just award in and of itself to what has become the clear and bona fide top tier fantasy baseball pitchers. And that's Tarek Skubal, Zach Wheeler, Paul Skeens, and Garrett Crochet respectively. But the big reason for that is because as we've seen the pitching landscape in baseball this year and many years past now, everybody gets hurt. Every single top line pitcher winds up getting hurt at some point. And in spite of that, these 4 guys that I mentioned have been very healthy and dominant the entire way. Going into drafts this spring, Skubal, Skeens, and Wheeler were basically the absolute unquestioned top 3 pitchers off the board. And then you had either Garrett Crochet and Logan Gilbert as number 5. Some drafts that was Crochet, some drafts that was Gilbert, but mostly speaking, these were the top 4 pitchers heading into the season. And we've had perfect health from all 4 and complete dominance again from all 4 of them. When you get past them and go through the rest of the top 20 for pitchers in fantasy baseball this season, and I'm taking my ADP data from the NFBC, they're just the sharpest fantasy baseball drafts on earth, the best ADP. If you follow this ADP in your home leagues, you guys will likely win those leagues. I'm definitely going to make a video about that this offseason. But just going past those guys, the rest of the top 20 for a second, take these 4 guys out. There's 16 pitchers left in that top 20. 11 of those 16 have spent time on the injured list. And as far as the guys who have not spent time on the injured list, one of them is Dylan Cease, who has not had a good season. And then just outside the top 20, you have guys who I've mentioned like Aaron Nola, Roki Sasaki, and Tanner Bybee, who each in of their own right have been something close to disasters in fantasy baseball. So with that, there's an honorary thank you for being great award giving out in the Cy Young portion of this show to the collective aces of Tarek Skubal, Zach Wheeler, Paul Skeens, and Garrett Crochet. Thank you guys for being as good as you are. But now to the true nominees of this award. First up, we have Max Fried. Not drafted as one of the elite pitchers heading into the season, but definitely pitching like one of them. His 2.27 ERA and 0.96 whip are some of the lowest marks in the entire league. And that's especially impressive from a guy like Fried because he pitches his home games in Yankee Stadium, one of the worst parks in the league for a pitcher to pitch in. I'm saying pitch a lot, pitch. But the ballpark like that will just kind of naturally push your ERA and your whip up. We've seen that from Garrett Crochet this season compared to guys like Skubal or Skeens. So it's very impressive that Fried can be near the top of the league with that home park. Also, the craziest thing about Fried is just the consistency he's had, start in and start out. His 13 quality starts lead the American League, and he's just been so steady. And apart from Fried being steady, it's just the dexterity he has on the mound. He's throwing 6 different pitches at least 10% of the time, one of the only pitchers in baseball to be doing that. And he's made a huge adjustment this season with the Yankees helping him out with that, pushing up his cutter. That's become his primary pitch against right-handed batters, going from just 4% usage to 35% usage, which is a crazy jump. A guy who's this experienced as Fried, who a team like the Yankees just gave so much money and such a long contract to then make this big of an adjustment, changing your primary pitch from something you never threw really before ever against right-handed batters, the hitters you will see the most over the course of a season by far. It is so amazing how that's all just coalesced and turned Fried into this guy who's being nominated for the midseason Cy Young. He's up against Hunter Brown of the Houston Astros. We're now going on more than a year where Hunter Brown has been one of the 5 or so best pitchers in baseball. Since the beginning of last May 2024, when Brown brought a sinker into his repertoire for the first time as a major leaguer, after a disastrous April where people were kind of running for the hills, he had a 9 ERA. We didn't know what was going to happen. He has a 2.22 ERA. Only Skeens has a lower earned run average. A 1.03 whip, which is the 6th lowest among all pitchers. And a 20.8 strikeout minus walk rate, which is the 9th highest among all pitchers. Overall, you put it all together, few pitchers in baseball have been more effective than Hunter Brown over what's now a 14-month sample. And then we just get into this season specifically. Hunter Brown's a 1.82 ERA. That is the lowest in all of baseball. And you guys probably have noticed me, maybe not, I don't know, talking about ERA a lot more in this video than I often do when I talk about pitchers. I think I just did the top 50 pitcher update. I might have mentioned ERA like 4 or 5 total times in that video. Because most times I'm making videos for you guys, I'm making them with the idea of being predictive, not describing what already happened. If I'm being predictive, I'm looking to the future, if I'm trying to figure out who's going to be the best for the rest of the season, I don't really care about ERA because ERA really just describes what just happened. The average of how many runs you've allowed over a 9-inning sample. That's what ERA is. It's a descriptive statistic. It doesn't have any bearing on the future whatsoever. It's cool to see. It's cool to look at. This guy's low ERA, this guy's a high ERA. But that's why in this video, I'm intending to describe what's already happened this season. That's why for this, ERA is very useful. But again, when I go back to the normal videos next week, you're not going to hear much more ERA talk. But now that's enough of that tangent. The award for Cy Young in the first half of the fantasy baseball season does go to my guy, Hunter Brown. You guys were able to draft Brown like way outside the top 100 in some drafts, maybe even outside the top 30 or top 40 of starting pitchers taking your drafts heading into the season. And what he's given you as basically the most valuable pitcher in fantasy baseball that's not named Tarek Skubal or Zach Wheeler. It's just astounding. And he was still a bit of a secret heading into the season because of how bad he was last April and how he kind of took that momentum all the way through the end of the season, but without the super elite stats to make everyone pick him up as an ace. And that's a big reason why he is the fantasy baseball first half Cy Young Award winner. Because we can't just give credit to all the guys who we expected to be great and were great. We need to find value. That's what fantasy baseball is all about. And Hunter Brown, his definition of value this season. And some quick honorable mentions here. Joe Ryan, Logan Webb, Brian Wu, favorites of the channel. We love everything they've done for us. But now we got the big one. The final award of the night is the Fantasy Baseball First Half MVP, and we have some incredible nominees, starting out with James Wood, outfielder in the Washington Nationals. It's amazing how much of a star James Wood has already become. It'd be amazing if you guys listened to somebody who told you this in March. That person might have happened to be me. That's neither here nor there. But felt like Wood was really building towards that stardom last season when he came up as a rookie. Right about now, about exactly a full year ago, he had 9 home runs, 14 stolen bases, 800 OPS. And you felt like he was just scratching the surface because he wasn't pulling fly balls. He was still swinging and missing a lot. Some kind of problems out there in the outfield. But you just saw what looked like it had all the makings of being one of the best players in baseball. Now he has taken that step and is one of the best players in baseball. He's on a 40 homer, 20 steal pace, almost a 950 OPS. That's not even just first round value back for James Wood, a guy you're probably able to take around pick 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, depending on your league, how sharp everybody was, that's like top 5 value back. When I start doing draft content for next season, there's a really good chance that James Wood is a guy that we're looking at taking with a top 5 pick in the entire thing. Because that power speed combo you just don't see every day, especially when that power combo can get into 40, 50 home runs with the 20 stolen bases to boot. That's the skill set James Wood has. Like, there are probably some of you guys watching this video right now who may have drafted Michael Harris ahead of James Wood in your leagues. And if that happened to you, I'm just really, really sorry. And the most amazing thing is, Wood probably still isn't even scratching the surface. He's still barely pulling any of his fly balls. The second that actually happens, he might hit 60 home runs. He could be the next iteration of Aaron Judge. That's really in him. But this is going to be a very hard award to win. There's a lot of great nominees. The next one being Cal Raleigh, catcher of the Mariners. Raleigh's had an absolutely insane season so far with 35 home runs, 9 stolen bases, and a 1,000 OPS. Doing things at the catcher position we've basically never seen before. Like, I think about some of those amazing Mike Piazza seasons, and that was still not a 60 homer pace like we've seen Cal Raleigh do so far. And he, almost by himself, along with Randy Arozarena, another disappointing season from Julio Rodriguez, is totally dragging this Mariners offense through, trying to get them to the postseason as best he can. In fantasy leagues, we know how hard catcher can be sometimes to get a lot of production from offensively. So having Cal Raleigh on your teams is such a ridiculous trump card where literally if you have him, no one else in your league can possibly even get close to the production you're getting from the catcher position. But I don't know if Raleigh or Wood can win this award because the next nominee has had maybe the most impressive season relative to expectations in all of baseball, and that is Pete Crow-Armstrong, center fielder on the Cubs. I, a few times in this channel, have advocating selling high for Pete Crow-Armstrong, and he continues to just kick dirt in my face and tell me that he will never regress because he keeps going through as one of the most productive players in the whole league. He's the only player so far to already have 20 homers and 20 stolen bases, with 23 homers and 27 stolen bases. And again, I just can't get over the incredible step forward he's taken at the plate. Even as of last season, even as of late last season, he had a low contact rate, he had a low on-base percentage, he wasn't accessing any of his raw power in games. It just looked like kind of a guy who was moving his way towards being definitely a defensive stud forever, but we never knew if there would actually be genuine consistency at the plate. Now he's making more contact, he's getting to more power, he's still pulling the bulk of his fly balls. He's consistently hitting in the middle of a Cubs lineup that's been the best lineup in baseball so far this season by runs per game. And this is still all while PCA is probably the best and most valuable defensive player in all of baseball, just making catch after catch after catch in center field that'll make your jaw drop. He's so good, and in most leagues, he was drafted well outside the top 100. We were looking at guys like Dylan Cruz over him, Mark Vientos, Jake Berger, Willie Adames, Anthony Santander, Luis Robert. All of these guys we were considering drafting much ahead of Pete Crow-Armstrong, and all Pete Crow-Armstrong has done has been one of the most valuable players in all fantasy baseball this season. But I don't think he's the most valuable player in fantasy baseball this season. I'm giving this award back to Cal Raleigh, the big dumper on the Seattle Mariners. And the big reason for that is the positional value of catcher and what he's given us in our fantasy teams. It's just so ridiculous how much better he is than even the next closest catcher in the league. And the next closest catcher in the league is Will Smith, who's having one of the best seasons of any player in baseball. Will Smith has the highest WRC plus in the National League. Like, he's been an absolute lights out hitter this season. But between the playing time and the volume Raleigh gives by the days he's not catching, playing DH, where Will Smith gets ample days off to give Dalton Rushing some plate appearances, and just because the Dodgers know they can load manage that whole team, it's ridiculous how much better he is in fantasy, Raleigh, than every other catcher. Just to give you some ranks of Raleigh versus the other catchers in the league. The 35 home runs are first. Second is Logan O'Hoppe with 17. That's double. Then Cal Raleigh's 74 RBIs. Next closest is 50. 50% more. 50 for 75. That's ridiculous. 62 runs scored. Next closest has 54. And then 9 stolen bases. Next closest has 5. Those 9 stolen bases are so sneaky for Cal Raleigh. In a rotisserie league, if your catcher is giving you 9 stolen bases over the whole season, you just got a huge advantage over the rest of your league. Cal Raleigh's doing that on a 60 homer pace. This is the most valuable player in fantasy baseball. I actually don't even think it's that close. If you're playing in a standard head-to-head points league, Cal Raleigh has scored a ton more points than Pete Crow-Armstrong. You have more chances to get good outfielders relative to PCA. Not taking anything away from PCA or even James Wood, but Raleigh being one of the 2 or 3 highest scoring players from a position that never gets anybody close to that is you can't match that. Even in rotisserie leagues, based on the 5x5 player rater on Fangraphs, Cal Raleigh has accumulated more player value than PCA. There's just no taking away from what Raleigh's done this season. I do think he's actually in position to challenge Aaron Judge for the MVP award. I don't know if he'll get there. He probably needs 55 home runs to actually make that competitive, but the fact that it's even within range just goes to show how incredible of a season Cal Raleigh is having right now. But all right, guys, thank you all so much. These were the Fantasy Baseball Midseason Awards. I'm trying a lot of new creative stuff with this channel, so you guys let me know if you're liking this stuff. Of course, you're going to get the regular waiver wire video coming this weekend before the All-Star break. And then next week, just during the All-Star break, one day, maybe it comes out Wednesday when everything's really chill, I'll probably put out something like 5 hitter breakouts we trust so far this season, another waiver wire video right after that, and then something else I'm thinking about trying on this channel. I might start doing some live streams, maybe some Monday morning live streams, Monday morning 11 a.m. live streams maybe for an hour. I don't know what you guys are usually up to Monday 11 a.m., but you get down in the comments, let me know if you think you'd want to tune into a live stream if I did every Monday. You guys can ask me questions, we could do lineup decisions, we could do some trade talk, we could do really whatever you want. I'll sit there and stream for an hour, and you guys can ask me anything you want. So that's something I'm considering for the channel, thinking about that, as now we start to get towards the dog days of summers. Only the real warriors are still playing fantasy baseball, and we appreciate all you guys for that. Appreciate you guys sticking with this video too. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.